You laughed at every episode. You related to the struggle. You thought you knew the story. But what if I told you that behind one of the most beloved sitcoms of the 2000s, there were secrets that never made it to screen, stories of pain hidden behind punchlines, dreams that almost never happened, and lives that changed forever in ways you never imagined. This is the untold truth behind Everybody Hates Chris. Before the world knew him as one of the greatest comedians alive, Chris Rock was just a skinny kid from Brooklyn, New York, born on February 7, 1965. He grew up in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, a place where survival wasn't guaranteed and dreams seemed impossible. His father, Julius Rock, worked multiple jobs as a truck driver and newspaper deliveryman, sometimes pulling double shifts just to keep food on the table. His mother, Rosalie, was a teacher and social worker who ruled the house with an iron fist and unconditional love. Chris was the eldest of 7 children, which meant responsibility came early and childhood ended fast. Are you enjoying this story? Everybody Hates Chris. Then help the channel with your subscription. Look, 94.8% of the people who watch these videos are still not subscribed to the channel. If you are part of that group, take the chance and subscribe now. It's free. And that way you'll keep receiving amazing stories from TV shows we still miss. Oh, and don't forget, at the end of the video, you'll find more stories like this one. But what the show didn't tell you was how brutal his early years really were. Chris was bused to predominantly white schools in Brooklyn as part of a desegregation program. Every single day was a battle. He faced relentless bullying, racial slurs, and physical attacks. Kids would spit on him. They'd steal his lunch. They'd beat him up just for being black. And when he came home bruised and broken, his parents told him to be strong, to rise above it, to never let them see him cry. So he learned to laugh instead. He turned his pain into punchlines because humor was the only weapon he had. School was a nightmare, but Chris found refuge in comedy. He would watch Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy on television, mesmerized by how they could transform suffering into laughter. He studied them like textbooks, memorizing every pause, every inflection, every perfectly timed joke. He knew then that comedy wasn't just entertainment. It was survival. It was power. It was his way out. At 17, Chris dropped out of high school. Not because he was lazy, but because he couldn't take the abuse anymore. He started working at Red Lobster, then at various fast food joints, scraping together whatever money he could. But at night, he was hitting up every open mic in New York City, bombing more than he succeeded, learning the craft the hard way. His father wasn't thrilled about his son chasing what seemed like an impossible dream, but his mother saw something in him. She believed when no one else did. Then came the breakthrough. In 1984, at just 19 years old, Chris performed at a comedy club in Manhattan, and sitting in that audience was Eddie Murphy, the Eddie Murphy. After the show, Murphy walked up to this unknown kid and told him he had something special. He gave Chris advice, encouraged him to keep going, and later even cast him in Beverly Hills Cop 2. That one moment changed everything. Suddenly, doors that had been bolted shut were cracking open. Chris started appearing on television. He joined Saturday Night Live in 1990. But it wasn't the fairy tale people imagine. He was constantly overlooked, given terrible sketches, and made to feel like he didn't belong. Some rumored that there were tensions behind the scenes, that he clashed with writers who didn't understand his voice. He left SNL in 1993, frustrated and underutilized, but he didn't give up. He kept grinding, kept performing, kept believing that his voice mattered. His stand-up specials in the late 90s changed comedy forever. Bring the Pain in 1996 made him a superstar. He talked about race, relationships, politics, and poverty with an honesty that was both hilarious and devastating. He won 2 Emmys for that special. Hollywood finally saw what his mother had seen all along, but even with fame, Chris never forgot where he came from. He never forgot those bus rides to white schools. He never forgot his father working himself to exhaustion. He never forgot feeling invisible and hated just for existing. And in 2005, he decided to tell that story. He created Everybody Hates Chris. The show was based on his real childhood, narrated by Chris himself, and it became an instant hit. But here's what most people don't know. Finding the right actor to play young Chris was nearly impossible. They auditioned hundreds of kids before they found Tyler James Williams, a 12-year-old with raw talent and an old soul. Tyler wasn't just acting. He was channeling real pain, real struggle, real resilience, and Chris Rock saw himself in that kid. Terry Crews, who played Julius Rock, brought an intensity and warmth to the role that made him unforgettable, but few people knew that Terry was broke when he got the part. He had been living off his NFL savings, which were running out fast, and was doing odd jobs to survive. Playing Chris's father wasn't just a role for Terry, it was a lifeline. He poured everything into that character because he understood what it meant to provide for your family against impossible odds. Tichina Arnold, who played Rochelle, brought fire and ferocity to the role of Chris's mother. She made Rochelle tough but loving, strict but nurturing. And in real life, Tichina had her own battles. She was navigating a difficult marriage during the show's run, one that would eventually end in heartbreak. But on set, she was a mother to everyone, protecting the young cast and keeping spirits high even when her own life was falling apart. Tequan Richmond played Drew, Chris's younger brother, with a coolness that contrasted perfectly with Chris's awkwardness. And Imani Hakim, who played baby sister Tonya, became the breakout scene stealer with her sass and comic timing. These kids weren't just acting. They were living a version of the struggle that Chris Rock had survived decades earlier. Behind the scenes, the set was a family. Chris Rock would visit frequently, sharing stories and making sure the show stayed true to his life. He wanted every episode to reflect the real experiences of black families trying to make it in America. The show tackled racism, poverty, education, and identity with humor that never diminished the seriousness of those issues. It was funny because it was true, and it hurt because it was real. But success brought pressure. Tyler James Williams later revealed that being the lead of a major sitcom at such a young age took a toll on his mental health. He struggled with anxiety and the weight of expectations. He felt like he had to be perfect, like he couldn't show weakness. Sound familiar? He was living the same cycle Chris Rock had lived, hiding pain behind performance. The show ran for 4 successful seasons, ending in 2009. It didn't get the finale it deserved. Budget cuts and network decisions ended it abruptly, leaving fans wanting more. But the impact was undeniable. Everybody Hates Chris became a cultural touchstone, especially for black audiences who finally saw their stories reflected with honesty and humor. After the show ended, the cast went in different directions. Tyler James Williams continued acting, appearing in shows like The Walking Dead and Abbott Elementary, proving he was more than just Chris. Terry Crews became a Hollywood powerhouse, starring in Brooklyn Nine-Nine and becoming an advocate for survivors of sexual assault after bravely sharing his own story. Tichina Arnold kept working steadily, bringing her talent to shows like Survivor's Remorse and The Neighborhood. The kids grew up, the family scattered, but the love remained. Chris Rock himself continued to dominate comedy, producing specials, acting in films, and speaking uncomfortable truths that made people laugh and think. But he also faced public struggles. His divorce from his wife Malak in 2016 was painful and messy, played out in tabloids and gossip columns. He admitted to infidelity, to being a flawed husband, to failing at something that mattered deeply to him. Once again, he turned pain into material, talking about his mistakes on stage with the same honesty that made Everybody Hates Chris so powerful. And through it all, the show's legacy grew. New generations discovered it on streaming platforms. Memes and clips went viral. People quoted lines and remembered episodes that made them laugh until they cried. Because Everybody Hates Chris wasn't just a sitcom, it was a love letter to struggle, a celebration of resilience, a reminder that the kids who get bullied, who get overlooked, who get told they'll never amount to anything can become legends. Chris Rock took the worst moments of his life and gave them to the world as a gift. He showed millions of kids that they weren't alone, that their pain mattered, that their stories deserved to be told. And in doing so, he created something that will outlive all of us. The boy who was hated became the man who was loved. The kid who couldn't find his place created a place for everyone who felt lost. And the comedian who learned to laugh through tears taught us all that sometimes the funniest stories are the ones that hurt the most. That's the real truth behind Everybody Hates Chris. It was never just a show. It was survival. It was therapy. It was proof that no matter how hard life hits you, you can still get up, dust yourself off, and make the whole world laugh. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest revenge of all.